Hello and welcome back to another GPU review by me. This time around we're checking out the GTX 660 by Nvidia, which was released in September of 2012, which makes it a pretty old video card. And this is my longest review to date, so if you like it, just watch it I guess. I'm not gonna force you to do anything. Let's jump into it. Let's go over some of the specs of the video card first. At launch, it was a mid-range card that performed okay at 1080p with medium to high settings, and you could sacrifice some of the resolution to get better FPS. And that is still true today. With 2 gigs of VRAM, most demanding games won't handle high-res textures very well, so it's mostly medium to low settings today as well. The version I have is a pretty small one from Gainward with 1 fan, and I have to say, it runs quiet and cool. So hardware-wise, it was a pretty good experience. It requires a single 6-pin power connector, so upgrading systems with basic power supplies isn't really an option here. But that's enough about hardware, let's see how it performs. And I read some of your comments telling me that I play too many games for children, and that you want to see me test more demanding games. So this time around, I put on my big boy pants and built up enough courage to ask my mother to buy me some 18+ games, and she refused. And then I remembered that I'm 21 years old and I make my own money, so I asked my grandmother to buy me them instead, and she said yes. So I got The Witcher 3, Apex Legends, which is free, but don't think about that too much. And I also have some of my usual titles like CSGO and Rocket League. So let's just move on, I guess. Let's start with The Witcher 3, the game for big boys and me. I still haven't played through the whole game, and my GTX 660 hasn't either. But when I do, it could be done with the 660. With an average of 37 FPS, it was actually playable. And at the 1080p low settings, it didn't look that bad. But the next game was a totally different story. So Apex Legends was up next, and I suck at this game, because I'm not an Apex or a Legend. Neither was the 660 in this game. It ran at 720p low settings, and I had to run it at those settings to get some playable results. And even so, it only got an average of 63 FPS. But it was the minimum FPS that was the worst part, and it fell as low as 30 FPS, so there was a bit of stuttering. And overall, this game was just a bad experience. But let's go over to some good news. So CSGO was up next, and as most of you know, this is a pretty CPU intensive game. So hopefully your GPU can stay out of the way and you get some good FPS. On the 660 I had to turn the settings down to medium, and that was it. The results were 174 FPS on average. That's still not enough to make me a good player, but it's enough for it to not be an issue. So if you play a lot of CSGO, this card will actually work pretty good. Rocket League is one of my favorite games, and it's a pretty easy game to run on almost all systems. And the story was no different here. With an average FPS of 102, it was a good experience, still not enough for high refresh rate gaming, but it's not low enough to be a problem. And I didn't have any issues playing with the 660, I actually ranked up while using it, so if you play a lot of Rocket League, this card is the one for you. So let's finish up the video with the conclusion. This card is still powerful enough to play some lighter titles with decent settings, and some demanding titles with lower settings and resolutions. And if that's what you're looking for, I'll say go for it. They can be found pretty cheap these days, and run cool and quiet, and don't use a lot of power. So that is about it. Thanks motorcycle, I really needed that right now. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a good day.